And
Yes,
she's
hello.
next on our list. If you want to, I think with DeKalb County, Miss McCarthy.
Hi, everybody. My name is Marci McCarthy, and I would appreciate that you had me here today. I am a successful businesswoman in the cybersecurity industry. I was elected as a 2020 national delegate for the Republican National Convention. In 2020, I served on the voter review panels, known as VRPs, representing the DeKalb GOP during the June presidential primary, August runoff elections, as well as in the general special election in this past November. Today, I'll share with you how 4 areas in the processes and controls that were either altered or removed entirely for the general special election that were in place for the June presidential election the June presidential primary and August runoffs. This caused several irregularities and inconsistencies within the VRP in DeKalb County. My first point today that I'll bring forth. The role and composition of the VRP changed from a 2-person bipartisan panel to a 4-person panel that was not objective. For 5 days, the VRP had 2 pairs operating independently of each other. My second point, when adjudicating ballots via the scan images on the computer, there were no processes in place to protect the integrity of the original ballot. There were no system or physical controls or paper or system log files of the VRP ability to even lock the vote after it was adjudicated, but still required further review. Computer IDs were shared amongst election office personnel on the workstations that were assigned to perform the ballot adjudication of the VRP. My third point that I'll bring forth to you today is the duplication of the absentee and military ballots did not have witnesses as required by our state's constitution. In the general special election, the duplication of military ballots was done by DeKalb County election office personnel in a separate location and time frame outside the oversight of a VRP. My fourth point today, because there is no checks and balances in the absentee ballots authentication processes, human error caused 2 voters in DeKalb County to be disenfranchised, and that was unbeknownst to them as their absentee ballots were from the wrong election. And the outer and inner envelopes had already been separated by the time we received that at the VRP. And there was an inherent bias in the VRP once working within a single body. So just to familiarize everybody, the VRP is to determine the voter's intent and is to be done so in a bipartisan manner. During the combined presidential primary and runoff elections, the VRP was comprised of a Republican and a Democrat and was truly bipartisan. However, during the general special election, the VRP was comprised of 4 people, 1 Republican, 1 Democrat, and 2 nonpartisans. The nonpartisans were represented by the League of Women Voters, who officially claim to be nonpartisan in that they don't support a candidate or a party, but they share a variety of progressive public policy positions that are in direct alignment with the Democrat Party's political platform. In practice, the VRP composition during the general special election was comprised of 1 Republican and 3 Democrats. Although the Georgia Secretary of State's office authorized a start date of October 19th, 2020, the VRP panels in DeKalb County did not commence their work until October 28, 2020. From October 28, 2020 to November 1st, 2020, the 4-person VRP operated as 2 separate VRPs. The Republicans and the Democrat participating in the VRP only analyzed the general election components of the ballot. The special election for the Senate was adjudicated separately with the nonpartisan pair. There was no oversight for them. During the time frame, over 800 ballots were put into a system quarantine mode, and sent to the nonpartisan VRP, again, without any oversight or control, nor any observation and participation from the Republican and Democrat VRPs. This was done to expedite the workflow of the VRPs due to the high volume of paper ballots that were received, a delayed start, and because of the fact there was only one pair of a nonpartisan VRP, but we had 5 to 7 pairs of bipartisan VRPs. Much of the adjudication was done on the computers as the ballots could be scanned but could not be processed due to an imperfection. This could be something like a hesitation mark, a write-in candidate, and or just an overvote. But unlike the earlier elections, the elections office worker would perform the adjudication via the computer at the direction of the bipartisan VRP on the scanned ballot image. We also had to go into a special room and had a paper logbook where we both signed in and out of the secure area. In the general special elections, the system adjudication was done with minimal supervision from the election supervisor, and changes to the ballot were done independently by 2 VRPs for 5 days. There was no system controls, no physical controls in place, and there was no audit control to protect the decisions made by either VRP as the ballots went into a system quarantine mode. There was no way to lock the scanned ballot when being viewed on a computer. So whomever was the last VRP to review a ballot in quarantine could still anonymously edit the previous VRP's work, transmit it to be completed, which would cast the ballot. Because the nonpartisans were operating independently, and the most common error in the special Senate election race was an overvote of the 5 Senate Democrat candidates, there was an untethered opportunity to award that overvote to Raphael Warnock, as there would be no audit trail that showed a modification that was made and when that change was made and who made it. There was no changes in procedure until I expressed my grave concerns to Lane Flynn, who is the DeKalb GOP chairman, on October 29th, following my VRP shift. The most common error that I observed on the absentee ballots was an overvote of the Democrat senatorial candidates. I observed and noted that the computers being used by the VRPs to review the ballots were signed into by various DeKalb election office personnel, all sharing the same user IDs. So there was no possible way to track the identity of who actually logged in into any of the computers and who sat at them. The lack of physical and system controls was just astounding to me. Other than receiving an authorization letter from either the affiliated political party and being sworn in at the time of your first shift, there were 0 records being maintained. Furthermore, the badging was ad hoc at best, where some of the VRPs had the laminated badges, but most had sticker badges. It's important fact that the military.
Ms. McCarthy, excuse me, I don't mean to interrupt,
Yes.
but we're got about a minute left.
Okay, well, I have a lot to share with you, and I hope you would lend me a little bit of additional time, because I think you're going to be very interested in what I have to say next.
We most certainly are interested. Take an extra minute, but we can certainly welcome you back and take that testimony in writing as well.
So I want to bring to your attention, I appreciate the extra time and leniency. And an important fact, military ballots cannot be read by our scanners in Georgia. The Special General Election DeKalb County Elections Office accepted 1,878 military ballots out of 25 initiated. During the time frame of the general special election, there was a significant difference in the duplication process of the absentee military of the COA ballots. For the summer elections, the VRP did the duplication of the absentee and military ballots. But during the special and general election, the duplication was actually performed by unobserved election workers. And to provide clarity to describe what a duplication of a ballot is, it was done in the summer by a Democrat and a Republican. And it was done because it could not be read by the scanner. The work was labor intensive and very time consuming, and it was overseen by the DeKalb County election supervisors, but it was completely bipartisan. During the time frame of the special general election, the VRP did not duplicate ballots at all. That was again done by election workers, which is against our Constitution in terms of there. They were also serving as a glorified VRP because they would only give us the rejected ballots that they felt that they could not transcribe directly. Okay, and this was done during our special general election without any oversight. I think that should make everybody here very concerned about the integrity of our election. This decision was made by Erica Hamilton, of the Director of DeKalb County Voter Registration and Elections Office. So I would like to also share one other point with you. We had a voter review panel that finally got together as one body 5 days into the process. We found 2 absentee ballots from the wrong election in our pile of ballots that we were to manually adjudicate. One was for Donald Trump and one was for Joe Biden, but it was from the presidential primary election. I have to ask everybody here today, if we're doing a verification and authentication of the signatures, the ballot, why were 2 ballots in the same pile presented itself there and were from another election? So unbeknownst to 2 DeKalb voters, they did not know that they were disenfranchised, but were. There was absolutely no process in place to handle that because the ballots and the envelopes were already separated. My final point to bring forth to all of you is the bias that was inherent in the voter review panels. There was one instance where there was a paper ballot that was wet and had dried and the ink had run everywhere. I was the only Republican serving on this voter review panel, and they all lobbied around a vote that did not exist for Raphael Warnock. When I really seriously disagreed with that decision, we escalated it to an election supervisor who served as a chief voter review panel, which was not in place in our voter review panels as stated by our Constitution in DeKalb County. Essentially, she overruled me.
Ms.
So it was
McCarthy,
a 4-to-1 situation. Yes.
Ms. McCarthy, I apologize for having to cut you off, but we're already back up over to our original time, and we would welcome you back to testify some more very enlightening testimony you provided today. I don't see any questions, but I do want to thank you for being here.